Hi, everybody. Welcome again to SiteSource. This week we're going to Asia and we're going to talk to El Quang and Selina Sinclair about how their businesses have been impacted by COVID-19. So to start with you, Selina, when and how did COVID-19 start to impact on your business?
Okay, so I'm the Global Managing Director for Pacific World. So obviously we have a large presence in the Asia Pacific region and a large operation in China. So of course, we've been impacted by coronavirus really from the day one, and that started for us around January, very early days of January. We started, of course, to see that impact first our China operations. With our teams working from home from pretty much the second week of January 2020. It's been like a wave, as we've seen now go across the world, and it impacted our Asia operations, of course, first, country by country, one by one, throughout Asia, pretty much during January and February, and then, of course, our other operations around the world in April, March, April, and still continuing today.
Thanks, Selina. That's excellent. So now, same question for you, El.
For us, we felt it immediately because we have two brands. So the media brand, which means that we are quite connected with what's happening when it comes to the news of the region. And the other side is actually the consultancy brand. So I think like any other crisis, marketing dollars stop immediately and the escalation of sales activity goes up to try and attract and retain as much business as possible. So for us, it's relatively immediate. I think what we didn't expect was the absorption of emotions, because as we open ourselves to be there for our customers and our communities, more often than not, we forget that we have been absorbing all this information and we underestimated the time and effort needed to actually digest this information and compartmentalize information at bite-sized level. So that is something that we totally underestimated.
So what did happen then, Selina? Was it cancellations or postponements or both?
It's a combination of both, and that really is dependent on the planning lead time for the particular program. So we saw any events that were due to take place up until June 2020 were 80% of them were completely cancelled. Then anything that was happening for the rest of this year have been now postponed, with the exception of some programs towards the latter half of 2020. At the moment, events for 2021 are still in place. So, of course, we're all waiting to see how the next months go, and hoping that, of course, the business can recover and those programs won't be shifted. But yet, mostly cancellations, with around 20 to 30% of the events being postponed if you look at the global picture.
And in Singapore, El, what's the situation there?
For Singapore, we are quite lucky in the way that the Singapore government is quite progressive in their thought process and action. So they kicked into action really quickly. And also we are very blessed with the Singaporean mindset, whereby they are pretty much quite in agreement with the government processes and protocols. So we didn't really need to go into a lockdown until today, only because it is starting to prove that only through isolation that we can really break the cycle. So because Singapore is so small, it's a very dense country, so we definitely cannot afford to be infected, because we live so close to each other. And also above that, Singapore is a leading financial hub in Asia, so it has got a lot to prove in terms of being able to manage and communicate crisis.
So we're now in probably month 4 in Asia. what are we looking at the moment?
Sure. So of course, it seems like there's not going to be an end at some point, and we probably reached that stage around a month ago. But we are now really optimistic. So it's, I think, great that we can share our experience from those countries that have come into this first, with those, of course, in particularly Europe and North America, that are still really at the peak. Because I could say we are really coming now out of the peak into the downhill of what we see as the crisis, particularly in our Asian destinations. And what that means for us, we had our first new event confirmed yesterday. So, we wouldn't have thought that's even possible a month ago. Of course, fighting all the postponements and cancellations for months. But we had a new event confirmed yesterday for the latter half of this year. So that was super exciting, obviously, for the whole team. And we've started to see requests coming in again. So probably around 2 to 3 weeks ago, we started to see those requests coming mainly from the pharmaceutical and banking finance sector within Asia for Asia at this stage, of course, with the rest of the world still pretty much being in lockdown. But the markets are moving again, requests are coming in again. They are for a mix, some face-to-face meetings, smaller scale, some hybrid meetings, this type of requests. But we start to see requests. And so, for us, this is super positive. And so that really makes us feel that now, as we see that, we'll have a ripple effect across all our destinations around the world. So we do see there is light at the end of the tunnel. As I said, even to start receiving requests again has been the first sign of recovery for us in the Asian destinations.
And then looking outside of Singapore to other destinations that you work in and that you know very well, like Thailand, for example, China, Malaysia, and so on. What are we seeing there now at this point?
I think domestic business of some form are happening and working around the respective restrictions that the respective governments have placed on the different nations. I think people are wanting to get over the worrying and fear of the future. I think that is the priority. Second, people are very human centric at the moment. They're more concerned about personal livelihood and the livelihood of their immediate loved ones and how they're going to sort of like manage over the next few months. For those who are more financially stable for a period of time, they are trying not to spend and ride the wave through as long as possible whilst they find new solution and new possibility. I would say that for Asia, one of the key learning points is how to establish trust because the workflow in Asia is more conservative, where the SMEs are more used to working in an office than online or off or not in an office environment. So over the past few weeks, they have been learning heaps out of no choice. And so far, they have been quite successful in transforming from a face-to-face to digital platform.
So I'm also delighted to introduce Alicia Gao, another proud member of the site International Board. Alicia, you've been on the board for a number of years, representing Asia in general and your country, China, then in particular. So what has been the situation for you in dealing with COVID-19 since January?
Hello, I'm Alicia Yao, SAI Global Board Director from China. When we are affected by COVID-19, it was in January, while we were having SAI Global Conference in Canada. The bad news come during the conference, and we have to immediately help our staff stay and work from home and take care of them and get their enough masks for our staff for their safety of themselves, their family, while at the same time we have to take care of all the cancellations, postpones, and maintain the clients and to deal with all the rebooking. And then we also, at the same time, try to control the company budget, cash flow to survive. And while when we have so many groups canceled, And while we still hope we can have the whole China market recover soon, but then the whole world situation comes, make everyone so disappointed, and we really don't know what to do. There are so many people lose hope, but Site China chapter will immediately set up a live video program and to answer the questions of site member, encourage them, get together. And now that it's recovering and we are getting back 90% of the work, and we're starting to have new proposals for our business.
So thanks for that, Alicia. That's really wonderful to get such an update from on the ground in China. It's really, really useful for us. And thanks too, obviously, to El Kwang and to Selina Sinclair for joining us on today's update from Asia. Thank you so much.